Okay, we're up to Daf Mem Gimel Amid Aleph. So the Mishnah listed 18 treifas, 18 different type of deformity ailments that cause the animal to be a treifa. It's not going to survive. So the truth is, while we listed 18, the Gemara says it's halachal Moshe Messina. Halachal Moshe Messina that there's 18. So Amar Ula says Shmoina mine treifas nemru loy Moshe Messina. While there are 18 total, but there's 8 categories of treifas that were told over to Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu were told these are the 8 categories, and if an ailment does not fall under said categories, it's not a treifa. What are the 8 categories? So you have nakuva, punctures, psuka, severed, natula, being removed, chasura, a hole in it, like a hole in it, it's missing some, karua, torn, drusa, clawed by like an animal, nefula, if it falls off a building, and shvura, fractures. Those are the 8 categories that cover all the different types. Now, why are you mentioning these 8? What's the chiddush? There's one chiddush, and there's lafuke lukusa de Rachish bar Papa. Rachish bar Papa, we had yesterday in the Shev Shmaitza, Rachish bar Papa was mechadish that if you have a kidney that has a diseased kidney, that's also a treifa. Notice how disease is not one of these 8 categories. We've had torn, we've had deficiency, not a diseased kidney, and therefore Ula, who believes that it's these 8 categories, disagrees with Rachish bar Papa from yesterday. Okay, now Chia bar Rav is going to elaborate on Ula, and we're going to go tangents. It's going to be good. Amar Chia bar Rav, Shmaina treifas yesh b'nakuva. There are 8 different types of punctures, meaning 8 different organs that, if they're punctured, are a problem. And we listed them in the Mishnah. I'm not going to go through them now. Just esophagus, the brain, the lungs, the heart. Now, says the Gemara, Im toimer teisha. The truth is, if you go through the list, there's a 9th, because a gallbladder. In the Mishnah, it said that if the gallbladder is punctured, that's also a psul. So that's treifa. So l'chara, that's a 9th. So he disagrees. Chia bar Rav feels that the Mishnah, who says that a punctured gallbladder is a treifa, is not universal. Says the Gemara, Mara Rav Yossi bar Yehuda Katanila. This teaching that a punctured gallbladder is a treifa, that's only according to Rav Yossi bar Yehuda, and the Rabbanan disagree, and Rav Chia bar Rav follows the Rabbanan. Ditani, as the Brisa says, Nikva hakeva, if there's a puncture in the keva, which is one of the stomachs of the cow, Nikva hadakim, if there's a puncture in the intestines, treifa. Rav Yossi bar Yehuda, Oimer af nikva hamara. Rav Yossi bar Yehuda adds a gallbladder, but it's not universally accepted. Okay, so now we're going to say other teachings from Rav Chia bar Rav. Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Yossi. Actually, we're going to interrupt Rav Chia bar Rav to go on a little bit of a tangent, because we're going to quote Rav Yossi bar Yehuda, and other things. The Gemara is Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Yosef, Rav Yechanan halacha Rav Yossi bar Yehuda. This is why we're going on the side. We pass on like Rav Yossi bar Yehuda that a puncture in the gallbladder makes a treifa. Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Rav Yechanan, my ahadri lechavre Rav Yossi bar Yehuda. What was the discussion between the Rabban and Rav Yossi bar Yehuda? According to Rav Yossi bar Yehuda, a punctured gallbladder is a treifa. The Rabban disagree. So what was the conversation? Very, very interesting conversation. The pasuk says in Iyuv that Iyuv is describing the tsaros he went through. He said, Yishpaich la'aretz merirasi. Hashem spilled my gallbladder on the floor. Now when you read that, it kind of sounds like he's just describing difficulties. The Gemara is taking it literally. He had a puncture in his gallbladder. Spilled my gallbladder. He had a puncture in his gallbladder. And he survived. So you see, it's not a treifa. So v'adayin iyuv kayim. So that's the raya. Now, it's a paladik raya, because, first of all, you take it seriously, take it literally. I don't know. But also, the Gemara responds, you can't bring a raya from Iyuv. Why? The Gemara says, Amr lehem ein maskir ma'aseh nisan. Rabbi Yossi says, you can't bring rayas from Nisan. Meaning, the whole point of Iyuv is that he was going through tsaros, but Hashem sustained him in order to test him. So maybe, normally a gallbladder puncture would kill you. But Iyuv was, Hashem kept him alive, because that was the whole point. The whole test of Iyuv. I'll prove it to you. Why? What did Iyuv also say? He split my kidneys. Again, taken literally, that means that he had a cut in his kidneys. Now, if you split your kidneys, you will not survive. And yet he survived. So what's the answer? The answer is, you can't bring rayas from Iyuv. Says the Gemara, Mikachai, Elanisa Shani, Dichsiv, Achas Nafshi Shamara, Hashem watched over my soul. Meaning, the whole point of Iyuv is he's going through tsaros that Hashem is keeping him alive to test them. So you can't bring rayas from gallbladders. You can't bring rayas from Iyuv. Sachanam Nisa Shani. Okay, keep going. We're now just going to bring a couple of halachas, one-liners from Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Another one. Halacha k'divrei omer kazayis. The halacha follows the opinion that says that a kazayis by the liver. What does that mean? If the liver is entirely removed, that's a treifa. What if he has some liver left? A little bit. The animal retains some of the liver. So, our Mishnah implies that it's okay. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Rabbi Yosef says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, because the Mishnah says if the liver is entirely removed, it's a treifa, implying that even if it has a sliver left. Comes Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, no. You need a kazayis. The liver you need a kazayis, the liver remaining. Okay. Now here's the problem. I just told you that Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, is saying you need a kazayis, even though that's not like our Mishnah. Now, that's not the end of the world, because there are Tanaim who believe you need a kazayis. The problem is, our Mishnah is a stam Mishnah. Doesn't Rabbi Yochanan generally hold halachic a stam Mishnah? So if the halacha follows stam Mishnah, which is, you don't need a kazayis, you need even a minuscule amount, so how could Rabbi Yochanan say both things? That we pass on like a stam Mishnah in general, and our stam Mishnah says any amount of the liver makes it a kosher, but Rabbi Yochanan also says you need a kazayis. How do you reconcile those two things? Says the Gemara, Miyam Rabbi Yochanan hachi, Vam Rabbi Chanan Rabbi Yochanan halacha stam Mishnah, Utna nitla kavel nishar menu klum, hanishtar kasher afagav delehevich kazayis. He says we pass like a stam Mishnah. Our Mishnah is a stam Mishnah. And what does our Mishnah say? It's only a treif if the entire liver is removed. If any part of the liver remains, it's going to survive. How could Rabbi Yochanan then say you need a kazayis? The Gemara says, Amiroi ninu ali b'der Rabbi Yochanan. It's two different students, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, meaning one student heard from Rabbi Yochanan we pass like our Mishnah, and the other student heard from Rabbi Yochanan we pass like a stam Mishnah. I mean, this concept that we pass like a stam Mishnah from Rabbi Yochanan, that's not every student heard that. Some students heard that, some students didn't hear that. Okay. Another teaching. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef Rabbi Yochanan, Mara shenikva. Apparently the gallbladder is next to the liver. Now, so he agrees. He's checking this stuff. If the gallbladder is punctured, but the liver, it's punctured in an area where the liver is resting on it, to the point where the liver is sort of like a Band-Aid, like it's stopping it from having any of the bile remove. Mara shenikva v'kavetz seismasik kasher, it's kosher. Meaning it depends where on the gallbladder it's punctured. If it's punctured in a way that the bile can go into the body, then it'll cause a septic, it'll die. But if it's a treifa. But if the gallbladder is punctured in an area where the liver is resting on it and the liver just completely covers up the puncture, then it's not a treifa. Okay? Another teaching. So the bird, part of the stomach area of the bird, is it has a kurkuman. It's the gizzard. So the Gemara is teaching like this. The gizzard has the inside of it, and then there's a membrane on top. If the nikva hakurkuman, if the outer muscle, the outer membrane is punctured, but it didn't go through and through, it didn't puncture the inside, it's just puncturing the outer muscle, it's kosher. Meaning, for it to be a treifa, puncturing the outer muscle is not enough. Says the Gemara, what about the opposite? What if it punctures just the inside, not the outside? Meaning, what if just the inside of the gizzard is punctured, not the outside? Is it that the outside is not enough? It has to go through and through? Or no, it just has to puncture the inside.
Yeah, you only found out after you checked it, because there's no way to know.
Yeah, obviously. Meaning it swallowed a pin, whatever, a thorn, and it went through, and it punctured the inside of the gizzard, but not outside. So when you're dissecting the body, the outside is whole, but the inside is punctured. That's the shayla. Ate a thorn, obviously. That's the only way I would do it. Says the Gemara, what if it's the opposite? The inside is punctured, not the outside. So Tashima, Rav Yecha, Nikav Zeb kosher. As long as one is intact, it's kosher. Meaning, in other words, for it to be a treifa, it has to be punctured through and through. The outside and the inside. Straight puncture.
So it comes from the outside.
Doesn't matter where it comes from. It has to puncture both levels. It has to puncture the inside and the outside. I don't care where it comes from. No, of the gizzard. The muscles of the gizzard. It has to puncture the inside and the outside. It has to go through. Tashma, I'm sorry. Amar Rabba, Shnei Aris Yesh Levation. The vesha, which is the esophagus, which is what has the food, apparently of an animal, probably people also, I don't know, but of an animal, there's two layers. It's two layers. There's the outer layer and the inner layer. The chitzain is adam. The outer layer is red. The inside is white. So the inside is white, the outside is red. And nikav zeh b'loy zeh kosher. If one was punctured without the other, it's kosher. Meaning, a puncture in the esophagus makes it a treifa, but only if it goes through both layers. If it just punctures one layer, that's going to be kosher. Again, there's the outer layer which is red, and the inner layer which is white. Okay. Now, why do you have to tell me that the outside is red and the inside is white? Okay, so I'll check. Why is it significant that the Gemara has to tell me this? There are different halachas. The Gemara says one halacha is dichal of treifa. If you open up a cow and you find that it's reverse, this cow has the outer layer white and the inner layer red, that means that there's something wrong with the cow and it's a treifa. Meaning, that is not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be outside red, inside white. Okay? Ibailu, I have a kasha. Here's a kasha like this. You have the inside and the outside of the esophagus. So we said for it to be a treif, it has to puncture both layers. Does it have to puncture both layers on one line? Meaning, what if it punctures the outside on the top and the inside in the middle? Is it that both sides have to be punctured for it to be a treifa, or it has to be a clean, straight line through and through? You understand? That's the kasha. So it says the Gemara, here's the tradition that we have. Beveshet, kosher. By the esophagus, it's kosher if they're not next to each other. Because it's only a problem if they're lining up, if the holes line up. But kurkaban puzzle. But by a gizzard, it's puzzle. Meaning, by the gizzard of the chicken, the inside, as long as there's a puncture through both layers, even if they're not lining up, it's going to be a problem. So by the esophagus, if they're not lining up, it's okay. But by the gizzard, it's a problem. Now let me explain why that's a little bit strange. I would think it's the opposite. Why? The esophagus moves. I have a puncture over here, and I have a puncture over here. Outside layer, inside layer. So we said it's fine because they're not lined up. But by the gizzard, it's a problem. Out of the gizzard and the esophagus, which one is going to move more? The esophagus, because when you're eating, right, eating big food, all of a sudden, what just happened? You eat a lot of food, then all of a sudden, the inside moves, the outside starts moving, and it's possible that they line up. So if you want to tell me that by one of the organs it's an issue, the gizzard's not moving. But the esophagus legitimately might move based on how much you eat. I would think that by the esophagus it's a bigger problem because there's a chance it'll line up.
What does the gizzard do again?
It's just the stomach. It's just where the food, it grinds up the food. It allows you to grind up. Not to the same extent as an esophagus. The esophagus is moving a lot. So says the Gemara, Maskifla Rav Ashi Adarabba. On the contrary, Veshet da'achla bu'upayabe. The esophagus eats and moves. Revach gamdele poshale. It expands and contracts, and therefore it's possible. Zimnin b'hadja b'hadi adadi. It's possible that the punctures line up, and it should be a treifa. Kurkaban the menach naicha kizakaikai. But the gizzard, it is what it is. It shouldn't be. So it should be the opposite. So the truth is, the Gemara says you're right. Amar le Rav Acha ber Rav Yosel Rav Ashi. Marzutra and Rav Papa say like you, that the opposite. The gizzard, it's okay. In the esophagus, it's a problem. Okay? Another teaching of Rabbi. Amar Rabba, Krum, She'ala, Mechmas, Maka, Beveshet. Einoi Krum. Let's say you have an esophagus that's completely punctured. So we said it's a problem. But the outside, there's a scab. So it's scabbed over on the outside. The halacha is no good. A scab on an esophagus it does not heal it enough to the point where it removes the treifa. Sometimes a scab is a legitimate sealant, not by the esophagus. So even if you find it that there's a scab, doesn't matter. We look as if the scab's not here, and if it's punctured, it's a problem. Okay? Another teaching. Amar Rabba, Veishet ein loy bedika mibachutz el b'fnim. So we said the esophagus has two layers. There's the outer layer, which is red, and the inner layer, which is white. So says the Gemara, because the outer layer is red, you're never able to do bedika over there. Meaning, the whole point of the bedika, we'll see in a moment, why am I checking? But let's say you have to check. I have to check for internal bleeding, right? You can't check on the outer layer because the outer layer is red. It'll look like internal bleeding always. So if you have to check the inner layer, which is white. Now, why are you checking? Now, I'm not talking about where you know there's a puncture. If there's a puncture, there's a problem. I'm talking where there's a concern that there's internal bleeding. And the way to check it, we'll see in a moment, there's a situation where you have to check. I can't check the outer layer because it's red anyway. The spots of blood won't come up on a red
Take like a white cloth.
Huh?
Take like a white cloth and press it on the outside.
It's blood anyway. It's all covered in blood. It's all covered in blood. The point is, if you have to check for reddening of it, as we'll see in a moment, there was one specific ailment where you basically had to look for red spots because that was a sign of bacteria or bleeding, whatever you want to call it. You can't check on the outside because it's red. The only way to check is on the inside. Says the Gemara, when am I checking? I don't understand. What's the situation? Go to the next page. L'safik drusa. Safik drusa is a chiddush of Rabbi, and it's the following situation. I'll tell you the situation. You have a lion that gets into the cow pen. Now, in addition to it being there, so first of all, it's there. Number two, the cows go nuts. And number three, the lion is quiet. All of those factors together, Chazal felt there's a concern that it clawed the animal, even if you don't see any claw marks. Meaning, I don't see any claw marks. The concern is the marks are there and you're not noticing them. In such a situation, you have to check the entire animal for, apparently, the area near the bacteria by the claw marks, you would see red spots. So the point is, in such a situation, you can't check the outer layer, you check the inner layer. Now, it's a chiddush. I'll tell you why this is a chiddush. I don't even know that anything happened, right? It's like, I don't see any claw marks. I just know the lion was there, and the cows were going nuts, and the lion was quiet. And apparently those factors is enough to make safek d'oraisa. That's the point. It's enough to make a safek. I could argue it's a chiddush because I could argue, what's safek? I don't see any claw marks. Maybe if I see claw marks, I should check. No. Just that circumstance is enough that you have to check the animal. Okay, put that aside because we'll come back to it in a moment. Hahi safek drusa de asla kami de rabba. So there was a situation like this where an animal, the lion got in, v'chule, and you're supposed to check the inner tube of the esophagus, not the outer tube. So if you, by the way, if you put this in your mind throughout Shas, just keep in the back of your head, Rabbi had a certain style of teaching Abaye and Rava, and I think they were a little different. This is how he would teach Abaye. It's throughout Shas you have this many, many times. Rabbi took the esophagus in front of Abaye and was checking the outside. Now the outside is red, which we said is not. So he's checking the outside. I guess he's touching it, or, So the Gemara is Amalei Abaye Hamaru Damar Vesha Elam Bedika Lefnim. Abaye said, I thought you have to check the inside of it. You got to turn it inside. You can't check the outside. So Rava said, you're right, and he checked it. And he flipped it in. He inverted it and then checked it. And why did he do this? The Gemara says, by the way, he checked the inside. There were 2 spots of blood, a red on the inside, meaning indicating that the lion had attacked the cow. The Tarfain, he said it's treifa. Why did Rabbi do this? Rabbi knew the halachas. Rabbi was testing Abaye. The way that Rabbi would teach Abaye, it's throughout Shas, always with Abaye, is he would, instead of asking him shaylas, he would do something that was wrong and make sure Abaye would basically correct him. That was the style. So he was checking the outside because he was hoping Abaye would, he knew the halacha, he was hoping Abaye would correct him, and Abaye did. Okay. New teaching. Now this teaching is going to take us almost into the daf. There's 2 more sugyas. This is the first of the last 2. Amar Ula, Yashiv la koitz beveshet. Again, esophagus, if it's punctured through and through, it's a treifa. So you open up the esophagus, and on the inside you find a thorn. Now, the thorn is just sticking on the inside. Now there's 2 options of what happened here. It's not sticking through and through, by the way. There's no marks on the outside. It's just on the inside. There's 2 options. Number 1, the animal ate the thorn, and that's why it's stuck on the inside. But it didn't go through and through, so it's fine. Or the thorn actually went entirely through, and on the outside it healed over. And I guess I can't feel it. In which case it's a treifa.
That's a treifa?
Yeah, because if it went through, scabs don't count. Remember, with esophagus, scabs don't count. So if Itaka went through, that's a problem. Now, I don't know that it went through. I see it sticking on the inside. I see nothing on the outside. No indication on the outside.
So there's no scab on the outside, must not.
Oh, so says the Gemara, it's kosher. Meaning, we're not concerned it went through and healed properly with a scab and you're not noticing the scab. No, if it's on the inside, it's just on the inside, it's fine. Now, here's the chiddush. What does Ula say about the safek drusa? Again, what's the safek drusa? I have a lion that goes into the cow pen. I don't even see any marks. And what did the Gemara say? It's a safek d'oraisa enough that you have to check. Over here, I have a thorn sticking from the inside. Shouldn't that be enough of a safek to create problems? Meaning, how come By the thorn on the inside, we say, it's fine. I don't see any issue, it's fine. The lion, he didn't even claw it, and we're already being machmer. Why are we more machmer with the lion? If you want to be strict with sveikas, be strict. So you know what the answer is? You're right. Ula does not believe in the whole lion case. The whole concept that if a lion is just in the pen, that you have to check the animal, Ula disagrees. Ula says, if you see a mark, then you deal with it. But you're right. Ula is more lenient in the world of a suffix, and he's not looking for problems. So he's makel with the thorn case, and he's also makel with the lion case. Now, says the Gemara, wait a minute. Let's say you have two pieces of steak in front of you, yeah? One's chazer. I know one's chazer. I know one's kosher. I don't know which one is which. What's the halacha? Can't eat it. Safek deraisa. So what does Ula say about that? How come over there he acknowledges it's a safek deraisa, but the thorn on the inside he doesn't say it's a safek deraisa? So says the Gemara, very simple. Hasam is chazik isura. That's called ischazik isura. You know what ischazik isura means? Ischazik isura means I know there's a problem here. I know one of these steaks is chazer. I know it. So I'm starting off knowing there's a problem. As opposed to this case where I don't know that there's a problem here. The thorn touched the inside. I don't know that the animal's a treifa. Meaning, when you deal with two steaks, one's kosher, one's non-kosher, you just don't know which one. I know there's an isser here. It's called ischazik isura. There's already established isser that's in this situation. Then you're going to be strict. But in the case of the thorn, I don't know that there's a problem here. So I'm not looking for issues. Says the Gemara, okay. What about the shechten animal? You don't see that there's a problem. It looked like a good shechita. And then afterwards you check the knife as a nick in the knife. You know what the problem is? It's a problem. It's a suffix that maybe the nick developed at the time of the shechita. Oh, so you see that it's a suffix deraisa and we're machmer. Says the Gemara, very simple. Over there I see the issue. The knife is a problem, for sure. It's just a matter of when. Over here, I don't know that a problem developed. Says the Gemara, Hasam is reisa bisakin. Over there, the knife has a definitive issue. It's just a matter of when it developed. Over here, I don't have a definitive issue. Says the Gemara weiter. I don't see the thorn through and through. And it's very reasonable of why the thorn is in the inside. It ate it. Says the Gemara, the halacha is that if you have a suffix tumah and b'rishus hayachid, it's tameh. So over there, that's an example of suffix deraisa and we're machmer. Right? We learn that from Saita. Remember suffix tumah b'rishus hayachid. So how come over there restrict? So the Gemara says because that's halacha mashmasina. Right? That same tumah in rishus harabim we're going to be mekel. In rishus hayachid we're going to be strict. Why? Because we learn that from a Saita. That's halacha mashmasina. Says the Gemara, l'tameich, according to you want to learn that from suffix tumah. Nidame l'suffix tumah b'rishus harabim d'sveketar. Suffix tumah b'rishus harabim is tahar. So what's the answer? The answer is we don't learn that from suffix tumah. It's halacha mashmasina. Ella hasam hilchos hagamir la misaita. It's learned that from Saita. It's halacha mashmasina. It's something you could apply. Oh, now. Till now, we assume the case is where you shech the cow, and on the inside of the esophagus, the thorn is sticking out, sticking in, right? Sticking in, right? You understand? So right there, it's there. And we're not sure whether it went through or not. Says the Gemara, I don't think that's the case. I think the case is not where it's sticking in at all. It's just inside. It's resting there. Meaning, it's not that it's even sticking in the wall where it implies that there was some puncture. It's not punctured at all. Right? If it's sticking in the wall, that means that it actually had a puncture. It's just a matter of whether it went through or through. The Gemara says, I actually think in that case, Ula would agree it's a problem. The case of Ula is where there's just a thorn inside the esophagus. So then it's like, oh, it ate it. But if it's actually, meaning in other words, Ula was only lenient if it was just resting inside the esophagus, not in the walls of the esophagus. This is Yasav Hum Rabbanan Kamed Rav Kahana Yasav Kamar Nimsis Itmar. No. Ula was only lenient when the thorn is in the esophagus, not when it punctured the esophagus. The Gemara says, "Avol yashil chayshinon." That's a pella because that's not what it sounds like what we're talking about. By the way, Adarabba. So what's the chiddush of Ula? That it's okay when it's just sitting in the esophagus? You know how many thorns that are probably in the esophagus of cows that are not punctured there because they eat thorns all the time. So says the Gemara, Amar le Rav Kahana loita tzisle. Don't listen to him. Yoshev itmar. Of course, the cases where the thorn is sticking inside the esophagus wall. Avonimsas loy itzarech le'ula. If it was just inside the esophagus, not punctured at all, Ula would not have to tell us this. It's a davar pashut. The kulo chiva berasa kutziachlan. All these animals eat thorns. It's probably thorns in the stomach. I'm sure if you open up the stomach of a cow, it probably has a lot of thorns. It's not. So then you don't need, exactly, so you don't need, Ula doesn't have to tell us this. Ula's obviously telling us a chiddush that it's sticking inside the wall. Okay, new topic, and this will take us to the end of the daf, about 3-4 minutes. Okay, so you have the esophagus. Now, the esophagus is a couple factors. Number one, a puncture in the esophagus is a problem. A puncture, it doesn't have to be cut entirely, a puncture. Number two, you could shecht in the esophagus. Those are two things I think that we know about the esophagus. Good. Itmar, now, at some point, the esophagus is the neck of the cow. At some point, when you get all the way to the top, it's no longer the neck, right? At some point, it's just past the neck, right? At some point, it's just, muscle tube. I don't know, but it's not the esophagus anymore. The top of the esophagus is called a turbat haveshet. It's called the court of the esophagus. It's on the very top. It's a hard shell on the very top.
What's the translation?
The translate is the court, C-O-U-R-T. I don't know. The turbat haveshet. So the question is, a puncture in that, is that a problem? Meaning, do we say that it's still considered part of the esophagus and a puncture makes it treif? Or do you say, no, it's no longer the esophagus, and what makes it treif is an entirely cut. It has to be cut 51%. That's the shaila. Rav Amar b'mashu. Rav says you could shecht in that area, meaning the court of the esophagus is still the esophagus in halacha, and if you could shecht there. So therefore it has the same status of esophagus. A puncture is a problem. Shmuel says no, it's no longer part of the esophagus. You can't shecht there anymore. What is it? It's just a piece of the animal. What makes it a treifa? Not a puncture. It has to be cut 51% through. Shmuel Amar Berubai. Again, so it's machlokes, how much treifs it up, a puncture or cutting it 51%, and it's talui, can I shecht in that area? Rav says yes, meaning i.e. it's still part of the esophagus. If it's still part of the esophagus, then a puncture treifs it up. Shmuel says no, it's not part of the esophagus anymore. You can't shecht there. What is it? It's just internal organs. So you cut 51%, it's a problem. So Rav Amar Makim Mashu Makim Shchitahu, Shmuel Amar Berubai La Makim Shchitahu. Now the Gemara just says, how do I identify the turbot savation? Meaning, how do I tell? So high new turbot savation. So apparently it's like this. Most of the esophagus, because it's soft tissue, if you cut it, it constricts. Towards the top of the esophagus, if you cut it, the hole doesn't move, like the slice doesn't move. Apparently, if you cut the turbot savation, it expands out. That's how you know it's a turbot savation. If you cut it, the muscle tissue at the end expands out. Says the Gemara. That's the first opinion. Amar Mari bar Mar Ukva Amar Shmuel Kol shechoitchay umarchiv zehu turbot savation. If you cut the esophagus and it expands, that's the turbot savation. But if you cut below that, you'll see that it doesn't expand, it doesn't constrict. It just stays as cut. That's the first opinion. Rav Papi disagrees. Rav Papi says no. Mar lo yamar halchi. That's not what he said. Uman Rabbi bar Rabbi, or Rabbi bar disagree with that. What did he say? Kol shechaytav ha'oimim becomes a turbot savation. The opposite. Turbot savation doesn't expand. It stands still. That's the turbot savation. And the esophagus constricts. And a third opinion, Yoina Amr Zira Mibalosa. Yoina says in the name of Zira that it's where the animal swallows. It's at the very, very top of the esophagus where it swallows. It's the very top. How much of the top? Amr of Avia Pachos Misarta V'Adam Mechitcha. Less than the grain of a barley, but more than the grain of wheat. It's basically at the very, very, very tip of the esophagus. Now, one last halacha, and this will take us into tomorrow's daf. Again, you have a machlokes. What is machlokes Rav and Shmuel about this turbot saveshet? According to Rav, the turbot saveshet, you could shech there, so it's punctured by a puncture wound is going to make it a treif. But according to Shmuel, you can't treif there, and therefore you can't shech there, and therefore in order to make a treif, you have to cut 51%. Here's the Gemara. Here's what happened. Hahu tura dahavle b'nei Rav Ukva. Mar Ukva's Rav Ukva had an ox. Basically, the shechita began at the turbot savation. He nicked to the turbot savation and then he shecht. So here's the shaila: is this animal kosher? So let me just talk it outside and we'll end with this. Yes, it should be kosher according to everybody. I'll tell you why. The most strict view about the puncture wound, it punctured it. It didn't slice it 51%, it punctured it. But it punctured it while shechting it. So Rav is the one who said that a puncture treifs it, but Rav says you could shecht there. So correct. So Rav says that while a puncture normally treifs it up, you could shech there. So according to Rav, it's kosher because you could shech there. Shmuel is the one who said you can't shech there, but Shmuel said it's only a problem if you cut 51%. So manashach, it's fine. I shechted there, and I nicked it as I was shechting it there. So Rav will say it's fine because you could shech there. Shmuel will say it's fine because you didn't cut 51%. Either way, it's fine. The only way it would be a problem is if you took both shitas and took the chumras of both shitas. You said, I'm going to take Shmuel shita, I can't shech there, and I'm going to take Rav shita, that a puncture wound is a problem. No shita bifnei atzmai would treif it up. If you want to, Frankenstein the situation, you can make a treif. But no shita. Rav would say it's kosher because you could shech there. Shmuel would say it's kosher because you can cut 51%. So it says the Gemara, Amar Rava, and we'll end with this. Rava said it's treif. Ramina le chumer de Rav, chumer de Shmuel, v'trefina le. Rava said, I'm going to take the chumer of Rav, I'm going to take the chumer of Shmuel, I'm going to treif it up. Why? Chumer de Rav, de Amar Rav Mashu. I'm going to take Rav shita, that a puncture wound is a problem. I hamar Rav makom shchitu, but Rav himself would say it's fine because you could check there. And then I'm going to take Shmuel's shita, damar lav makom shchitu. I'm going to take Shmuel's shita, you can't check there. I'm going to take Rav shita, that it's a puncture wound is enough. Ishmuel amar b'urubai, karav damar b'mashu. So I'm going to take Rav shita, I'm going to take Shmuel shita, I'm going to Frankenstein the situation and make it a shreifa. And the Gemara ends off with this: Il galgal misal milsa matoi l'kamei de Rav Abba. When Rav Abba heard the shita of Rava, he said, Amar lahu, he said to Rava, Toira bein l'Rav bein l'Shmuel kosher. This animal is kosher both according to Rav and according to Shmuel. According to Rav, because you could check there, according to Shmuel, because he didn't cut 51%. So you're going to Frankenstein the situation, take a chumrah of this, a chumrah of that. Each shita b'fnei atzma would say it's kosher. Zilu Amar l'breder Rav Yosef bar Chama. Go tell the son of Yosef bar Chama, i.e. Rava. Go tell Rav Yosef bar Chama's son. He didn't even call him by name. Go tell Rava, Dilshalm demei tur lamare. He owes the owner a new ox. Meaning, because he treifed it up, that was incorrect, and he owes them an ox. I will stop here. Tomorrow we'll continue in this discussion.